If you ask people what animal would you not mind going extinct, they might have a few top picks. This thing. For me personally, this thing, fuck mosquitoes. And I know I'm not alone, we literally call people we don't like bloodsuckers. But something that wouldn't be on my list are the severely misunderstood majestic ocean dwellers known as sharks. But sadly, for them, I don't have a say in it and they're dying. Because as I'm filming this today, over a third of shark species are endangered and the numbers are quickly declining, which is incredibly bad because they've been here for over 400 million years, so they're vital to the oceans. With, for example, Dr. Boris Worm, a certified shark expert, explaining to the New York Times, all ecosystems in the ocean have evolved with sharks in them because they are so ancient. When we take sharks out of the ecosystem, we find that the stability of the system is compromised. And so with this, if we're going to talk about why these things are disappearing, we need to do a deep dive into the shark trade. Because if you haven't looked into it, you might not expect sharks to be a big target of the commercial fishing industry. I mean, their meat is generally considered low value, but there is one part of them that fetches some of the highest prices for seafood in the world. Their fins. Because depending on the market, they could go for hundreds or even thousands of dollars a pound. And that's because they're used in a very popular Chinese soup, shark fin soup. A soup that can go for over $200 a bowl in Asian markets. And what makes all of this actually even more stunning is that the fin itself is actually pretty much flavorless.
Really bizarre. I mean, really bizarre. Because it actually tastes of nothing. The broth's delicious. Pretty good. But it could have anything in there. They could have chicken, sweet corn, it could have duck in there.
So its only real purpose is to add a chewy, gelatinous texture while also, I guess, showing off the wealth of the person eating it. And I mean, there's a lot of history here. Shark fin soup actually dates all the way back to the Ming Dynasty, when you had emperors eating it essentially to flex, where it was meant to symbolize their status and power over the most dangerous predators. And for centuries, it remained a luxury served at weddings, banquets, and other ceremonies for the upper crust of Chinese society. But then the 1980s came, and after China liberalized its economy, you had this growing middle class. And all of a sudden, they were able to afford the soup too. So then to meet the global demand, the global fishing industry went hunting for sharks, like a fucking lot of them, with ocean-going sharks actually declining by more than 70% in just the past half century. And when they're caught, the fishers just slice off the fins and toss this still living animal back into the water, which for them, right, it's very efficient. They get to keep the most valuable part of the shark while leaving open more space in the freezer for other high-value meat like swordfish and tuna. It's extremely wasteful and even more cruel. But also, as the deputy director of wildlife at Humane Society International explains, saying shark finning is like cutting off your limbs and leaving you to bleed to death. We don't know how most of them die, but you can guess they probably either bleed to death or suffocate because they can't swim, so they're not getting oxygen. So partly for this reason and partly to conserve sharks, governments began to ban or at least limit finning in the 1990s. And actually, as of today, 70% of maritime jurisdictions have regulations to stop finning or protect sharks. But this also, as we're now learning, that many of those policies not only didn't work, they may have actually even killed more sharks, which sounds crazy, but let me explain. Right, a study published back in January took the data on shark fishing mortality and cross-referenced it with new laws to see if there's any correlation. And it found that while fishers killed an estimated 76 million sharks in 2012, by 2017, the death toll jumped to over 80 million, with almost a third of them counted as threatened species. Which also, when you consider that sharks kill maybe a dozen humans a year, it's kind of funny that in pop culture we're so fucking scared of them.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
But the reason why the number's gone up is a little counterintuitive. Or one of the most common laws requires fishers to bring the entire shark back to land instead of just the fin. And to be sure, those laws appear to have worked, despite, of course, some people continuing to illegally cut off just the fins. But in another way, it also backfired, because the researchers suspect that the laws inadvertently created new markets for shark meat, oil, and cartilage. Because the fishers are like, well, if we're gonna have to bring back the whole damn shark, we might as well sell it. Or so even where the fin trade itself was outright banned, now some fishers just toss the fins and bring the rest of the shark to the market. And so as a result, the shark fishing trade has shifted from east to west, with China, of course, yes, still grabbing a large share, but other countries topping the import-export rankings like Spain, Portugal, and Brazil. And so now the new shark mortality hotspots are off the Atlantic coast of the Americas, near West Africa in the Indian Ocean, and the waters of Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines. And in countries like Brazil, right, one of the top importers, most people don't actually even know that they're eating shark because shops sell it under a different name. Though this is countries where shark fishing as a whole, not just the fin trade, was regulated, the study did find that mortality there did decline. And in small island nations like the Bahamas and the Maldives, which actually pioneered shark sanctuaries, their population numbers came out on top. Also, you have experts recommending banning the use of certain fishing gear such as gill nets and trawls. And while overfishing is the main factor driving sharks into extinction, it's not the only one, right? Because you have other things like climate change, pollution, and habitat loss. And as usual with these environmental stories, we find ourselves in this loop. Likely to save the sharks, we need to save the earth. But to save the earth, it would help to save the sharks.